Puppeteer Collector, and I'm your host, the Bearded One, as always. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting. It always means so much that you guys take the time out of your day to interact with me and watch my content. So you've read the header by now, you see the background, you got the Superman movie collection here, and I thought it would be fun to rank the 4 movies. Here recently, I saw all 4 movies for the first time ever, with the exception of Superman the movie. I saw Superman the movie one time ever, sometime when I was a kid. I don't know when, but I was a kid and I remember seeing it one time ever. Didn't hardly ever remember anything of it. But I'd say within the last year I saw Superman the movie, and then I decided, you know what, I want to see the rest of them. I want to have my own opinions of these. I want to have my own memories of these movies because they're so iconic, and more than just Superman fans have seen these movies. I'll go ahead and say I don't think any of these movies are crap. I have definitely seen worse movies. So, you know, if your movie is at the bottom, you know, don't take it personal. I'm not shitting on any of these movies. And also, I come from the perspective of somebody that I just got into comics in 2013. I've never collected or actively read Superman books. You know, I have right underneath the camera the DC 1 Million Omnibus, and Superman's a prominent character in that storyline. I have the Last Son of Krypton story arc, which Lobo's in. I have a couple other Adventures of Superman, Action Comics and Superman issues that Lobo's in. And then if anything else I have that Superman's in is like a Justice League issue or something. So I'm not tied to the continuity and the comic books like a lot of hardcore fans would be of these movies. So I think that kind of plays an effect into my opinion of these movies. And then you know, other than these movies, I've seen Superman Returns once, and I've seen a couple episodes of Superman Adventures. So, you know, and just again, I'm not too familiar with Superman. So let's dive into it. I think the weakest movie, clearly the weakest movie of the 4 movies, is Superman 3. So here, the cast has returned from Superman the movie and Superman 2. I don't notice any major casting replacements, which is great. I was kind of worried some of the minor characters would be recast. You do have an executive producer on 3 that we didn't have on 2 or Superman the movie, Ilya Salkind, and she's the executive over Pierre Spengler, who's coming over from Superman 2. I don't know if he produced Superman the movie. Richard Lester is returning from Superman 2. And then we have David Newman and Leslie Newman returning to write screenplays. But the third screenplay writer from Superman 2 left. So there are some changes to the creative team, and I feel like maybe that played a part into why this movie feels so disconnected from the rest of the franchise. We hardly see any Gene Hackman. We hardly see any Lois Lane, and those were 2 of my biggest complaints. I love Gene Hackman's portrayal of Lex Luthor. Is it the definitive Lex Luthor? No. Should Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor be the definitive Lex Luthor? No, not at all. I really love what DC has done in the last 10 years with Lex Luthor. But I do still love Gene Hackman in his own right, and the fact that we didn't get Gene Hackman and Opus doing goofy cornball villain stuff just took the movie down a notch. And then the fact that Lois Lane went on vacation for 3 weeks to the Bahamas in this movie, and we see her at the beginning and the end of the movie, takes the movie down a notch. You know, Lois Lane played a big part in Superman the movie and Superman 2, and maybe the cast and crew wanted a break from Lois Lane, but personally I didn't. I think she's an integral part to the franchise. We didn't get a lot of Daily Planet in Superman 3, didn't get a lot of Perry White, just a lot of characters and settings we're familiar with and just weren't really a factor in this movie. And to me, that really hurts it a lot. It really makes it some of the weakest, makes this movie the weakest of the franchise. Also, Richard Pryor, I understand it's 1983 and Richard Pryor was a hot name, possibly the hottest comic in the game in 1983. And, the purpose of putting out movies is to make sure they're profitable and make money for the company, more so than pleasing fans. And Richard Pryor, obviously the move was to put butts in seats, and that's why Richard Pryor was there. However, I don't like his character. I thought he was really corny, really cheesy. And it just felt off. Did I hate it? Not really. Richard Pryor didn't take me out of the movie. I just thought he was somebody that I couldn't suspend my belief enough into to get behind. He was just too goofy, too corny. And then the premise of his character, he's like a down on his luck, lazy guy who cuts corners. He's an alcoholic, a very bad alcoholic. And he's just this computer whiz, and he never knew that he was good with computers. Just very unrealistic, even though I know we're talking about comic books here, but just too unrealistic, even for a Superman movie. And then, the cherry on the top of what I don't like about this movie, the villain, the main antagonist. He's basically great value Lex Luthor. He's just this greedy business mogul that wants to control the price of coffee and beans in a South American country. It's either Argentina, Brazil, or Venezuela. I can't remember. It's one of those three, I believe. And we need Superman to take care of this guy. I would have rather sent Booster Gold or Blue Beetle. We don't need the Man of Steel, the strongest man in the DC universe, to handle a corrupt businessman. I just thought the plot was really weak and didn't have, a firm foundation to stand on. It's just really a weak plot. But what I do like about this movie, I like Lana Lang and her character. I really liked the character development of Lana Lang and Clark Kent, and that. I say character development, I meant relationship development. I have no qualms, even though I'm Team Lois Lane, I have no qualms with introducing Lana Lang. There's this long-standing philosophical examination, if you will, of Superman. Who is Superman? Is he Superman, the invulnerable superhero that's kind of out of touch and alienated from society? He's a god among men, or is he really being himself when he's Clark Kent, the bumbling fool, the sensitive, caring, mortal man? That's always a fun thought experiment to ponder. When is Superman or Clark Kent being himself truly? And I think that's kind of drawn out when you really think about Lana Lang and what she's attracted to in Clark Kent. She cares about Clark Kent, not Superman. She enjoys Superman and enjoys that Superman pleases her son, but she's romantically interested in Clark Kent, the sensitive mortal. It kind of speaks a lot to her character and what she's interested in a mate, I guess you would say. And they really could have gone a lot further with that and made it dynamic if they had Lois Lane in Superman 3 coming off Superman 2 and all the relationship development with Superman and Lois in 2, coming into 3, you bring in Lana Lang, and it could really ratchet up the drama and really put some heat behind those relationships, and they just completely ignored it altogether. They dropped the ball with that massive opportunity, and I hate to stereotype. That's not really what I'm trying to do, but I feel like that's something women could have been interested in. And in 1983, DC could have used more women buying their comics and having a greater feminine audience. And you could have had, you could have generated more interest in the female base, maybe in the younger adult crowd, if you had played up more of the Lana Lang and Lois Lane angle, in my opinion. But who knows? In the end, the whole movie suffers under that god-awful plot. Richard Pryor's going to build a supercomputer and it's going to control the price of coffee and beans and stop Superman. I mean, come on. Anyways, we'll get off this. Did I think it was the worst movie of all time? Absolutely not. I've seen worse movies. Looking at you, Suicide Squad. But yeah, moving on. Now this is where my list falls off the rails. I think some of you Superman fans are going to jump out of your seats and try to crawl through the internet and come slap me across the face. But I think the third movie in the Superman franchise tier is Superman 2. Made in 1981, again, we see a lot of the returning cast from Superman the movie. Peter Spengler is the producer. Again, I can't remember if Spengler is the producer on Superman the movie. Richard Lester is the director, taking over for Richard Donner. I've heard there's a lot of controversy around that, a lot of bitter, hard feelings about, why Richard Donner left, why he was replaced, etc., etc. I don't know all the drama. I don't know the whole story behind that. But, yeah, we have Richard Lester instead of Richard Donner. And then if you'll notice, for 2, Mario Puzo was there alongside David and Leslie Newman, helping with the writing. And well, I'll say what this movie has going for it big time is it's really faithful to the comic books. And I really feel like Superman 2 won a lot of the hardcore Superman fans over. If there was any issue with Superman the movie, any of these hardcore fans saying, how this may or may not be comic book accurate, I think 2 really brought forth that crowd, really pandered to that crowd, because you get Zod here, and Zod's a powerful foe, and this is the first time you're seeing Superman fight somebody of equal strength on the big screen. That's a huge deal, and I think at the time it was probably a big deal. I think the plot was a little simple, but the plot twist got me even in 2022. I didn't see the plot twist coming. So essentially, Zod, it gives us the background story of Zod, his party foul. Let me get my remote. Essentially, the movie starts out as getting the plot or the background of General Zod and his goons. How I think they betrayed Krypton, or they committed some kind of crime, and they need to be sentenced to the Phantom Zone by Jor-El. And they come to Earth, and they start being bad guys and blow shit up, and Zod wants to take over the world. Eventually does. He takes down the President of the United States. And in the meantime, you got Gene Hackman over here in the background hatching plans, doing nefarious things, his Lex Luthor thing, leading Zod to Superman in hopes to take down Superman and be able to rule Australia, because he has an affinity for beachfront property. Gene Hackman was great in this movie. And the plot twist here, there's a point in the movie where Superman learns if he's going to partake in humanity, and what I mean by that is, develop romantic interest in somebody, of human nature, of the human species. He has to give up his powers and be like the humans. I understand it's kind of a dumb thing. Why should he have to give up his powers? They never fully answer that. But I suspended my belief, and it didn't really matter to me that wasn't answered why he has to give up his powers. But because it works for the plot. It lets Zod and Luthor kind of get the upper hand for a while in the movie, and it makes the movie a little more interesting. But Superman gives up his power, so we go through a portion of the movie with a depowered Superman, and then at the end, Zod and Lex Luthor and his goons end up back at the Fortress of Solitude, and they're going to take down Superman for good. Superman lets Lex Luthor know about his chamber that removes Superman's powers. And of course, Lex Luthor, that rascally old Lex Luthor, betrays Superman and tells Zod of this chamber. And they force Superman into the chamber. And this got me. Honest to God, I was fooled. I really thought, how is Superman going to get out of this? I guess it's timeless writing, you could say. And lo and behold, the chamber Superman is in either gives him back his powers, or it just doesn't take his powers away. And then the rest of the Fortress of Solitude, the energy in the Fortress of Solitude, takes away Zod's powers, and Superman wipes the floor clean, saves the day. Hooray, Superman! That's essentially the plot. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a decent, solid plot. Sometimes you need just a see bad guy, go get bad guy, defeat bad guy kind of plot. And that's definitely what this was. It's not trying to hide itself and be anything different. But outside of that plot, there's definitely a really cool, I like the introductory scene of the Eiffel Tower. Lois Lane's in Paris to get the scoop on these terrorists threatening to blow up the Eiffel Tower. There's hostages up there. And of course, Superman flies up the Eiffel Tower, saves the day. And I think some of the shots in Superman 2 were actually of the Eiffel Tower. I think it's really cool. Something kind of hit me watching these 4 movies. The lack of, there's not too much like effects in this movie. I feel like in today's day and age, the Eiffel Tower would have been a CGI, a green screen. They wouldn't have actually been in Paris. So I really appreciated that at least it looked like they were actually in Paris underneath the Eiffel Tower. And that's just something I don't feel like I see very often in action films anymore. There's also the relationship building between Lois and Clark, and I really liked this part of the movie. Kind of odd. I really like the romantic aspect of Superman 2 over the action, but that's just how it is. I really liked the relationship building here. There's a scene where Clark and Lois Lane end up at Niagara Falls. I forget, they're on assignment for some reason. And Lois kind of puts it together that I've never seen Superman and Clark Kent together at the same time. He's Superman. And Superman goes out of his way at the expense of Lois Lane's life, essentially, to prove to her he's not Superman. And, they end up back at the hotel that they rented for their assignment, their base of operations. And she's just kind of venting, I really thought you were Superman. If I could meet Superman, I'd tell him all this stuff. And she's just spilling her guts to Clark. And Clark, being the nice, kind-hearted guy he is, he eventually reveals himself to Lois Lane. And then she confesses her love. And it just, something I feel we never got any payoff for it. I understand it's explained in this movie that if he's going to partake of the world, he needs to be of the world and give up his powers. But personally, I would have rather seen a different way. Did I need Lois Lane and Superman eventually getting married and having kids? Not at all. But that relationship building I just feel like there is no payoff for that. I feel I just feel left unsatisfied with all of that because it was going somewhere. It was building off of Superman the movie, and I really liked that. I also think this is the movie where Opus and the girlfriend break Lex Luthor out of jail with a hot balloon, and I thought that was really cool. I could get that wrong. That might be Superman 3. Either way, that was a really good scene. I really like seeing. I like seeing Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, being up to his no good deeds. So overall, I still like Superman 1 or Superman 2, and even though it's my third favorite of the franchise, it's still a really good movie. So, again, here's where I think a lot of you Superman fans might crawl through the internet, try to come through my phone and smack me. But I think Superman 4 is the second best movie of the franchise. And the only reason it's not my favorite, I'm telling you, the only reason I don't like this movie over Superman, the movie, is because they did Lois Lane so wrong. The writing for her, forcing her to be in this amnesic state of mind that they never really define what it is. They don't answer how she became this way, why she is the way she is. It just kind of a mystery, and I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that when Superman... Clark Kent is in the uniform in the same room as Lois Lane for the first time in Superman 4. She acts like she's didn't realize he was Superman. And if that ain't a continuity crime, I don't know what is. Because she confessed her love in Superman 2. She knows Clark Kent is Superman. So why is she in this weird, confused state where she remembers Superman 2. They even quoted Superman 2 in that scene about Superman and Clark Kent being the same person. But then when he turned into Clark Kent again, she was like, what's going on? I must have been in a dream. She acts like she doesn't remember Clark Kent as Superman. And he even acts like it. But they never explain why. Maybe the issue is it was made in 1987 and writing was different and they didn't worry so much about all these plot holes. They were just worried about, let's just put Superman and Lois in a freaking movie and people will pay the tickets and we'll make money. Maybe that's all they cared about. But looking through the eyes of a 2022 fan who's got all these movies that cover the details these days, to reference and to remember, I didn't appreciate that. The big continuity sense with Lois Lane. What I did love was the plot. Now, I bashed on Superman 2 for it being a see bad guy, go get bad guy, defeat bad guy kind of plot. And it's kind of what it is here, but I thought it was done a lot better. I thought the bad guy actually had heat behind it. One thing I will say about Superman 2 that I forgot to mention when I was talking about Superman 2, even though Zod was of equal power of Superman, I don't feel like there was as much heat on Zod. I couldn't take him as serious as I could take Nuclear Man here. I really liked the dynamic of Lex Luthor kind of being the brains behind the brawn of Nuclear Man. I thought it was cool, the electricity that he emits, and just his look was so cool. The actor they got was so jacked, and the fight was cool. I thought it was the biggest fight of the entire franchise. It's more than likely designed to be the biggest fight of the franchise. So I feel like I did get payoff for Nuclear Man being created. And I think it's so cool that Nuclear Man's backstory, how he got created, was a DNA cocktail strapped to a nuclear missile blowing up in the sun. That's pretty cool. And that's really all it is to the plot. The plot's not super complex or anything, but I still think it holds up well. Again, the villain had heat. I could believe this guy was better than Superman, and Superman was going to have to outwit the Superman, Nuclear Man. And oh, I just remembered the fight on the moon. That was freaking cool. Even though it's, I've got movies that I can watch that are so much more visually appealing than Superman 4. I gotta say, even in 2022, the fight on the moon was so freaking cool. When I saw Superman throw the first punch in space, or no, when I put it together that he was putting Nuclear Man on the moon, and the Nuclear Man broke out of the elevator. Superman trapped Nuclear Man in an elevator that he depowered because he needs sunlight, he needs warmth for him to be alive. Cold kind of shuts him down, puts him in a state of sleep. And Superman trapped him in the elevator, he powered down, and Superman pulled the elevator and dropped it on the moon, which I thought was a cool move. That was pretty awesome. And then the fight on the moon, I was like, please fight on the moon. And they did. And it was freaking awesome. And it was just a good action-packed movie. And there was enough, I got enough Lois Lane, albeit that was the biggest issue I had with the movie, Lois Lane. And I got plenty of Gene Hackman here. I think, Jackie Cooper came back as Perry White. We had new director, new producer, and new screenplay writers. So I think a lot of that contributes to the continuity crimes with Lois Lane. But overall, I was satisfied. I thought it was a really good movie, and it gave me everything I wanted from a Superman movie. And then last, but the most, not the least, Superman the movie. Can't beat it. You cannot beat Superman the movie. It's one of the great American classics. 1978, I think it holds up very well. Richard Donner. Wow, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster even were on board as source material. They had Mario Puzo on the payroll to help write the screenplay. Richard Donner, of course, the director. I like the origin story. I think it's a little corny. Just I call it Shakespearean. It's just a little too Shakespearean for me. A little too prim and proper. A little too rigid. The acting on Krypton, but I still think it's okay. Another example, as a reference. Think of Christopher Lee in Star Wars Episode 2 and Star Wars Episode 3. He's a very Shakespearean-esque actor, in my opinion. In that movie, he kind of sticks out, and he's just kind of a weird choice for a Sith in Star Wars. And it is, again, very Shakespearean, in my opinion. I feel like he could be in a Shakespeare play, not in Star Wars. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Krypton, just the vibe and the portrayal. I think it's cool. Like Don Corleone, Marlon Brando himself was Jor-El. I spent big bucks to get big actors here, but just a little not my favorite portrayal of Krypton. But I love the coming of age side of Superman the movie. Superman growing up. I just like the introduction of Superman. I love how Margot Robbie is written in Superman the movie. She is my definitive Lois Lane, and it's because of this movie. What she did in this movie. I like a Lois Lane that is sarcastic, not afraid to cuss, She smokes. She's a woman. An independent woman, a go-getter. That's my kind of Lois Lane. I don't picture Lois Lane as a weak damsel in distress. And Margot Robbie just did great. And then Gene Hackman is the villain of the movie. The plot's kind of corny, like how Gene Hackman is going to defeat Superman at the end is kind of corny. He sends, 2 nuclear missiles in opposite directions, and Superman's got to save one or the other. Which, how else is how else is Lex Luthor gonna beat Superman? I get that, but if you're the greatest criminal mind of our time, which is what Gene Hackman says throughout the whole franchise, I love when he says that line, the greatest criminal mind of our time. I feel like he could have done a better job than 2 nuclear missiles in opposite directions. A little corny, but at the same time, still good. And I actually liked that Superman was not able to save or to prevent both nuclear bombs from going off and killing people. He actually has to reverse time to save Lois Lane, and that's pretty intense. That Superman, in his first movie ever, didn't technically save the day. I thought that was an interesting choice to go with that for the plot. But yeah, overall, I don't know if many people thought I was going to put Superman 4 as number 1. You just can't beat Superman the movie. It's just so classic. And there's a reason Superman Returns is a spiritual successor. An entire director wanted to pay tribute to this movie. Overall, coming out of this experience, I understand. I've spent a lot of time on this channel when I talk about Superman that I don't like Superman. I'm not a fan of Superman. And I think that's wrong. I think I like Superman. Am I a fan of Superman? I'm not so sure. I can't see myself buying merch. I can't see myself putting Superman or Action Comics on the pull list. But I think he's a cool dude. I think DC needs Superman. And I'm okay with Superman being the number 1 guy. The strongest guy in the DC universe. DC needs Superman, and I think the time's come for me to quit saying I don't like Superman, or he's not even my guy, because I appreciate Superman. I think that's mostly what I take away from this. I appreciate Superman a lot, and George Reeves. If I have to say one thing about these movies, George Reeves and Gene Hackman and Margot Robbie, those 3 are the heart and soul of this franchise, and they made this franchise so good. Did I say George Reeves? Christopher Reeves. It's no wonder Christopher Reeves is the Superman for so many fans. There were scenes all across all 4 movies, and just moments where I would see Superman and he had the $1 million smile, or he would quickly change back to Clark Kent and be the sensitive, caring guy. And I'm just like, he was the perfect choice to be Superman. There was nobody else. When he auditioned for this role, Richard Donner or whoever hired him knew what they were doing. Fantastic actor. And I really hate that Christopher Reeve's life ended the way it did. I wish Christopher Reeve could have had a better life than what he got. But at least we have these Superman movies, to celebrate his finest achievements in life. that's going to do me for now. So to recap, Superman 3, I think it's the weakest. I think most people will agree Superman 3 is the weakest. Hot take here, Superman 2 is my third movie in the franchise, the second best movie for me. I understand there's a lot of continuity, plot holes, and mishaps in 4, but the plot is strong. I liked it. I liked Nuclear Man being an original villain. They gave me a big, huge fight that I was looking for in the Superman movies. Got it. And then Superman the movie being the best of them all. And you just can't beat Superman the movie. Just can't. It's too classic. So that'll do me for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed this ranking. Super Russ 9000, Fanboy Prime, Neil's Comics and Games. I think you also say you're a self-professed Superman. Hope you guys won't disapprove too much. And maybe you'll welcome me into the family as, a fellow Superman appreciator. Till next time.